This is YouTube Joseph WM. Um, YouTube Joseph. I'm. I mean, it's YouTube Joseph WM two. YouTube Joseph WM podcast interview with Dan Durda part two. So are you, Dr. Durda? Are you home or are you in your office?
I'm at home at the moment, actually.
I was expecting you were going to be in your office.
No worries.
And anyway, first before I get to the questions, I want. You're like the sixth person I interviewed. I interviewed this polar bear YouTuber one time named Dr. Plores. He's into dinosaurs. I interviewed Create Ball. He made his own project based off the story inspired by All Tomorrows. Have you heard of that book?
Say the book again.
All Tomorrows.
All Tomorrows. I don't think I have. No, I haven't heard of that.
It's a 2006 speculative evolution sci-fi book about future human evolution. I don't know if you're into that stuff.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah, I've seen a few books like things like that, like Afterman and things like that, which are,
Oh, you
they
have heard
explore.
what?
Yeah, they explore what things might be like in the far future.
In the far future. Oh, you will break up a little bit. Also, he also, as I go say, also I interviewed Venga, which unlike the others, he was on um he was the only one that I didn't do on Google Meet. He wasn't comfortable. I just did it on Instagram Messenger. He made his own spin-off project to All Tomorrows called All of It Tomorrows. You should read All Tomorrows first, or you could watch the dramatization on YouTube on All Shift X. Um, on that channel. You heard of speculative evolution, but not All Tomorrows.
Yeah, no, yeah, yeah.
Are you into speculative evolution or dinosaurs or any of that?
Well, like a lot of kids in the first grade, kindergarten, I was into dinosaurs very early. That was one of my very first interests. A lot of I think a lot of kids are interested in dinosaurs, right? A lot of people grow out of it, so to speak. But some people are lucky enough to continue it with as their careers. I've done I've done my research with dinosaurs from the astronomy side of things, right? From the
Ash,
impact hypothesis for
yeah,
their extinction. So yeah, a little different.
and also I and then the last person before you I interviewed was his name was Hoops and Dino Man. Oh, that's his YouTube name. He used to did reviews on dinosaur movies and documentaries, all that.
Mhm, mhm.
And then also what was I gonna say? All right, now on with the questions. First one, I forget last time you did you why you or what you said when I asked why doesn't Venus have moons?
Well, we don't really know. I mean, in the case of the Earth, right, we have a large moon. We think because of a giant impact of the Earth with a large Mars-sized planetesimal early on, or protoplanet early on in history, and that's a very stochastic, a very random thing. If Venus never went through a giant impact like that, there'd be little reason for a moon. I guess there are other hypotheses for how you can get moons by capture of asteroids and things like that. But that's a very difficult thing to do from a dynamical perspective.
Physics?
You need some way to help capture the object. You need a third object or some third perturbation, some third encounter with something, an atmosphere or some other object in the system. So
Okay.
yeah, it could be that just never had a giant impact. That could be as simple as it.
I think Venus did have a giant impact and did have a moon and just lost it at one point.
Well, that's certainly possible too. I mean, it could have orbited the moon. It could have lost that moon through some again a third body encounter. Maybe it was a small moon and maybe some large passing object early in its history stripped that moon away. We just don't know. There's no evidence one way or the other for or against. So, in the absence of any evidence for a moon, we don't know whether it had one and lost it or just never had one at all. There's no. I don't think there's any. There's not yet anyway anything we know about the planet's interiors, their internal dynamos, or things like that that can be diagnostic as to whether or not it went through a giant impact that may have generated a moon. So, in the in the absence of that sort of a theory, we just have to kind of wait for the future to see if there's some other way to diagnose that.
Will we ever know that if Venus had a moon?
Well, I'm not going to say no. I don't think I can. There's probably maybe sometime in the future we'll learn enough about planetary evolution to find something in Venus's, um, in the various, physical properties of Venus, its interior structure, and things like that, that may, in the future, provide hints or clues that would tell us that. We don't have that knowledge yet, but that's not to say we won't in the future.
That may not be for long, you said?
I don't know how long it'll be, but it may be there at some point in the future. We'll develop that capability to determine that.
So, oh, sorry, you're sometimes breaking up.
Yeah, we may know that someday.
Also, as I gonna say, do you know if do you know if v- do you know if um do you know if we'll find life on other planets in our lifetimes?
Oh gosh, I don't know, but I certainly would hope so. That's, I think, one of the grand mysteries and one of the biggest questions in all of science and all of human endeavor is to know whether or not we're alone in the universe. So,
We'll probably
um,
find it on Titan or Enceladus or Europa.
yeah, right. I mean, I think those you're naming the exact places in the solar system where we probably need to be looking the most. Titan, because of it, we know it has a thick atmosphere and organic chemistry on the surface. Europa, we know an underground ocean, and that might be conducive to some sort of things living in there or having evolved in there. So we have missions currently, beginning that sort of exploration, heading in those directions to look. And it may not, it may take several more decades. Um, I'm, I don't know. Maybe it turns out we're alone in our solar system, but if we're alone in our solar system, that still doesn't mean that we're alone in the galaxy. We're just literally, billions and billions of other planets out there around other stars. So, if we were to find another instance of life in our solar system, that, in my mind, effectively guarantees that the galaxy is brimming with life.
And the
Because
universe.
I mean, just statistics. I mean, if life is so easy to have evolved that it's made two separate or three separate, beginnings in one particular solar system, that just means that it's going to be everywhere.
Do you know what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, yeah. But you said just because we're alone in the solar system doesn't mean we're alone in the universe.
Yeah, I mean, and we don't know yet that we're alone. But my point is that if in the decades, centuries to come, we find out that we're alone in our solar system and that the only place life evolved was here on Earth, that still isn't necessarily bad news for the instance of life elsewhere in the galaxy. There are just so many other possibilities for life out there that the search goes on. It just becomes the search becomes more difficult because it's obviously much easier to explore the other objects in our own solar system. They're comparatively nearby and easy to get to. It's going to take, I think, many more centuries of technological progress, not to mention just the literal constraints of the time to travel between other stars for us to go and actually begin those explorations of other planetary systems. Some of it we can do remotely. The chemistry of the atmospheres of other planets might be clues to.
Exoplanets, you mean?
Say that again. Go ahead.
You talk about exoplanets?
Yeah, talking about exoplanets. Yes. I mean, we're entering the capability now to be able to study the compositions of those planets, the compositions of the atmospheres of those planets, and there can be clues in the mix of gases in an atmosphere that are good hints to the existence of life or some sort of interesting biochemistry going on there. So
We're entering
that
what?
might be one way for us to do that. It's a lot more fun when you can go there in person and actually gather samples and directly detect the life. But indirect detection via atmospheric chemistry is still very intriguing.
I think robots would be more. I'm always more interested in robotic space missions than manned space missions.
Oh yeah, and when I mean it's very clear that the first things that we're going to be sending to other stars, just like the first things we send to the planets here, are going to be robotic emissaries. So absolutely, they're wonderful tools.
But but with our current technology, we wouldn't be able to get the data back in our lifetimes.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult because the transit time to go even to the very nearest stars is very long. So
Thousands
that's
of
gonna,
years.
well, it's a long time beyond our lifetimes. Maybe a lifetime or two from now, we'll have the technology, the capabilities to get there faster and get the information back a little faster. But for the time being, we're just beginning that exploration, so we have to be patient.
What about warp drives? Could you send a spacecraft in a warp drive? Are warp drives possible?
Well, I'm not going to say it's impossible. I don't know. It'd be great. I hope it's possible. It'd
Is
be
that
a
a question?
fun way to be able to tunnel through space time in some way to make the trip faster. That'd be great.
And I know the data waves sent go back at the speed of light. Could you send the data waves, the radio waves, with the information pictures in a warp drive?
Well, I think the whole point of something like tunneling through space-time of warp drive, as you say, the whole point is that you can bypass the whole worry about sending information back via light, via radio. If you can find a way to pop through space-time and cut the journey short, so to speak, you physically travel back and forth. I think is the way to do it.
But I'm talking about sending a robotic spacecraft, let's say, to a star 100 light years away, and and with a warp drive, it only takes 10 years to get there. But the light railways travel at the speed of light, so we would still have to wait 100 years to get them back. And but is there any way you can make the railways go faster than the speed of light?
Well, not as far as I know, not through normal space. If you could somehow figure out a way to tunnel the electromagnetic radiation through space, then perhaps you could cut that journey short. But that's beyond my knowledge of physics.
That's something. That's a question for an astrophysicist.
Yeah, yeah. You need a Kip Thorne for that, I think.
Who
Kip Thorne is a big somebody who knows a lot about black holes and tunneling through
was
space.
he on? Was he on any of the shows you were on?
Not that I know of. I know Kip advised Carl Sagan when he wrote his novel Contact, and Kip also did some work with Chris Nolan for doing the movie Interstellar. There was a lot of work there, I think, in terms of figuring out how to illustrate what a black hole might look like. So I think there was
Yeah, I
some.
seen that movie with this planet called Miller's Planet. Every 7 years, every hour the astronauts spend in there, 7 years go by
Yeah,
on
because
Earth.
it's deep in the gravity well, the black hole. Yeah, yeah.
And then also, as I go say, do you know why Uranus well, do you know when Uranus was hit by the collision, had a collision that caused it to rotate on its side?
Well, if that's what puts it over on its side, that's the leading hypothesis. That kind of large impact would have most probably happened in the very very earliest accretionary days of the solar system. That's when all of that kind of action, the celestial billiards, took place.
So
After
between
the initial flurry of activity, you enter a
four
period
billion
for
and
many
four,
billions of years where not a lot happened. So if it was a giant impact or giant collision of some sort, it would have happened very very early on.
it would have been between 4 billion, 4.5 billion years ago.
Yeah, probably right close to the 5 billion, 4 billion, 4.5 billion years ago. Yeah, right close. Yeah.
Was there anything that any of those any events in the solar system's history that happened between 4 billion years ago and now, other than the Earth changing?
Oh, well, sure. I mean, we see evidence in the asteroid belt, for instance, of giant collisions that shattered asteroids to bits and created families of fragments with similar orbits. So, and we can roughly date when those collisions occurred, and those have occurred in the last few billion to hundreds of millions of years ago sort of time frame. There have been some fairly sizable impacts on the moon, but uh, yeah, most of the big stuff happened prior to about 4 billion years ago. But in between, it's been a little bit more calm. There's no doubt about that. It's been a little bit more calm. Probably we don't know for sure, but we think the rings of Saturn may be a relatively young phenomenon. We don't know exactly how young, but just the size of the particles there, the size of the fragments there, and the forces that govern their evolution tell us that they probably haven't been there for the full 4.5 billion years of the solar system. So that might be a relatively new phenomenon, but it's true the big events moon forming events and things like that would have happened very, very early on.
It's only the Earth that, of all the planets, only the Earth really changes a lot, right?
Well, no, I think we have there are some bits of evidence that Venus, the surface of Venus, goes through some pretty significant volcanic changes. There for a little while there was an idea that the surface of Venus periodically, episodically, completely resurfaces itself. It goes through this sort of cataclysmic volcanic resurfacing on the time scale of several 100 million years, few 100 million years.
Like what
Um,
Enceladus goes through, but with lava instead of water.
what it seems to be is that because Venus doesn't have a plate tectonics, a crust that's broken up into big plates like the Earth that allows the heat to escape, that heat builds up until the entire planet resurfaces at once. That's the idea, and that idea was born out of looking at the statistics of where craters are on Venus. And I think the current leading ideas are that it's really not doesn't have to be completely resurfaced like that. It may be more of a gradual thing, but the point is that's an example of planetary changes that are occurring pretty commonly right now. Um, Jupiter, the gas giant planets, Jupiter, Saturn, if you will, their appearance changes constantly because the cloud features there are constantly evolving. We see that with Jupiter with the Great Red Spot currently shrinking away. Something we've been seeing, ever since Galileo was looking at the telescope over 300 years ago.
It was
Um,
probably there for thousands of years.
it could be on a time scale of thousands of years. That means that on the time scale of back to 4 billion years ago, it's been through a lot of changes, right?
No, I
So
mean the Great Red Spot could have been there as long ago as 10,000 years ago, right?
possibly, don't know. I mean, it it might be only able to live a few thousand years. I don't know. The point is, it may not. It probably is not the type of feature that would last, for over billions of years. So that's an
It's
example of
not going
changes that are constantly occurring.
it that it's not going to last forever.
Yeah, it probably won't last forever. That's right. But then there'll be
Probably
some
be
new giant. So
what?
then there'll be some new giant spots.
It will probably be gone by the end of the 2040s.
Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. It's shrinking now, but maybe it's not shrinking permanently. Maybe it'll shrink and grow again. Who knows? We don't know yet enough about its evolution. We just have to keep watching it.
Also, what does it rain in the Great Red Spot?
Well, I don't know. I mean, there might be some sort of precipitation. I don't know what that precipitation would be.
Certainly not water.
Yeah. Possibly water, but that it needs to be deeper down, right? If you're very high up, the temperatures are very cold, and liquid water wouldn't exist. You might have frosty things. You might have rain, but not water. It might be raining with some other organic molecule that's colder.
Methane.
Deep down, it's too hot for that, no matter what it is, and you've got basically a steamy atmosphere down below, and well, the pressure's increased to the point where it is acting more soupy. It's almost half gas, half liquid.
Okay, and what was I gonna say? When was Saturn's rings formed?
Well, that we don't know. There in the press over the last couple of years, uh, the canonical answer has been on the order of 100 million years, but we don't really know. We just don't know. We don't know how old they are. They're probably young. They're probably younger than the age of the solar system. They probably have not been around the planet in their present form since Saturn was formed. But we don't know exactly how young they could be.
They won't. Will they last forever?
No, probably not. I mean, there's a continuous source of replenishment of the rings, even if the current rings were to completely disappear over time. There's the likelihood, the almost certainty that new systems of rings would be generated by collisions onto the small icy inner moons of Saturn. But the present rings at some point slowly have to disappear because there's drag from the atmosphere, there's pressure from sunlight, there's gravitational interactions from the moons. Those are the kinds of things that will make the ring system not last over billions of years. But the exact time scale of replenishment, It might be they might be there over a very long period of time, but are being constantly refreshed and changed as they
by
regenerate. They
by comets.
Yeah, comets, collisions under the small moon. So there may be rings there almost all the time, but the rings may be different from time to time.
And
So
also, do all rings not last forever?
they almost can't, right? Because over time, collisions have to break up the particles in the moon in the ring
They all
system.
they all what?
Over time, collisions with comets and asteroids and interplanetary dust and things like that over time that erodes the rings. So the particles in the ring. So yeah, rings can't last forever. There's just no way they can last forever. They can be very long lived, but not forever. And the
Do
only
you
question is how what time scale are they replenished on?
do you think most sources I saw say Saturn's rings will last for another 300 million years?
Yeah, that's kind of the numbers I'm familiar with as well. Yeah, that's probably about right. But in that 300 million years or a few hundred million years, there's the likelihood that there might be some big collision on one of the small little icy moons interior, in the rings there, and refresh them to the point where that's going to last longer than that few hundred million years. So a lot can
Would
happen.
it be Enceladus that gets destroyed and added to the rings?
Or what destroyed?
Will Enceladus be turned
Oh,
into part of the ring?
oh well, I mean, uh, yeah, possibly in the future, there's always a possibility of some Oort cloud comet being perturbed inward that would have that collision. In today's solar system, things like that happen very much rarely, more rarely than they did, back 4 billion years ago. But there's certainly always that possibility that you could have a large Oort cloud, you know, object be perturbed in to significantly crater the moon. Sure.
It's not that likely.
No, but not likely. Yes, that's correct.
How long can you
Possible, but
stay
not
on?
likely.
How long can you stay on for?
I got about another 5 minutes.
All right, I'll try and make this quick. Also, do you think what was I gonna say? Do the satellites and space chunks humans put around the Earth count as a ring system?
And yeah, it's kind of like it's a little bit. It's a little. If you count especially the geosynchronous satellites, the ones that tend to want to be up, over the equator, um, there is a kind of a ring. It's kind of an artificial ring, sure. A little bit of an
Could
artificial shell around the planet. Yeah, absolutely.
could two could two I have a question. Oh, could a planet have more than one ring system?
Well, I guess if you count there being a significant gap uh, between, like, you have some very you have some inner ring and then a big distance between them and some outer ring. If you were to count that as two separate rings, I suppose that certainly could be possible. Whether you count that as two separate rings or just one ring system with a large gap is a matter of semantics, I guess. But almost by definition, these ring systems have to be coplanar, though, right? They're in the equator of the planet. If they're highly inclined, then over time the particles all destroy themselves. That's why rings are rings and not, you know, donuts and shells. There's a natural selection, a natural orbital selection for collisions to make them be flat systems in the equator of the planet.
So,
So
so it's possible, but not that likely a planet could have more than one ring system.
yeah, I think so. I think so. You could have if you were to call some very widely separated rings with big gaps in between separate rings, then sure.
What about could a planet have more than one moon system?
Well, we see that now, right? I mean, there's how many dozens of moons around Jupiter and Saturn, right?
I mean, one moon is not a single system.
Well, in our case it is, but that's the only moon we have. So that's our system. Our system contains one, right? Um,
Earth's moon. I mean, like one moon, but if there's multiple moons in the system, like Jupiter or Saturn, then say Europa or Io, then
yeah, I guess you call that the system. I guess it's just one system, whether it has one moon or 200. It's just one moon system.
also, what was I gonna say? Do you know if a planet could? Oh, you don't know if a planet could have multiple moons.
Well, multiple moons, yeah, sure. I mean,
Multiple moon systems. I
well, Yeah, I mean, like I said, that's a matter of semantics. That's a matter of definition. How do you, what do you mean by a moon system, right? I guess if you have any moons at all, that's your system of moons. So I
Same
think
with
I,
a. Oh, continue.
yeah, I'm just gonna say it's a matter of definition. That's what your moon system is,
Same
one or
with a
more.
star having multiple planetary systems. It's a matter of definition.
Well, yeah, well, yeah. I mean, a planetary system is the set of planets around a particular star, right? Our solar system is our planetary system. Other stars that have planets are their planetary systems. So, but every one is just a single thing. It's
And final question. Do you why doesn't the dwarf planet series have any moons?
Well, we don't know. I mean, we don't know exactly how it formed. There are some ideas that perhaps Ceres was formed in the Kuiper Belt and evolved inwards. In that scenario, if it evolved inwards to the inner solar system, it's possible that if it had a moon, it might have been lost in that process. It just may not have ever had a moon. A lot of asteroids do have moons. We're now finding that a lot of Kuiper Belt objects have moons. We're now finding out that some of these minor planets actually have ring systems too, which is kind of surprising. We didn't know that an object so small could actually have a system of rings.
Yeah,
So
what's it called? Sherlocko, that centaur, that cent. Is that how
yeah,
you
that's
pronounce it?
yeah, Cheroklo. Yep, that's one
Sure.
that has a ring system. And maybe we shouldn't be surprised if they can have rings now that we know that they can have moons. That's a way to
What?
generate a ring system. If you break up a moon by a collision around one of these things, you're going to form a ring system. So that shouldn't be too surprising to us in retrospect, but it's a fun surprise for sure.
Also, as I go say, I had another question. Do you know what was I gonna say? Forget what it was. Also, I want to tell you that I think I didn't tell you this last time. I think you're a cool guy.
Thanks, I appreciate that. Fun to
You know
be here and interviewing. Yeah.
what?
Fun to be here. Hope you can find some other cool folks to interview too.
Cool what?
I hope you can find some other cool people to interview too.
Also, I had another question that was retained into the episode of Doomsday History Channel of the when Earth fell into the sun. You were one that I remember you saying on it um that it would be impossible that you and some, I think it was also Alex Filipenko explaining why you can't just escape, that we couldn't just build rocket ships and escape the Earth if it was falling into the sun. I don't quite understand that. Can you explain that more?
Oh gosh, let me see. I'm trying to remember the context in which that was. It was so long ago.
That was in
Yeah, I don't know. I
2016.
mean, I mean, you've got enough rocket energy. It depends on what you're falling into, I guess. But if you've got enough rocket energy, if you've got enough impulse, enough fuel to burn, if you can achieve escape speed, then you're going to be able to escape. So, I, it's just a matter of throwing enough energy at the problem.
Also, should I think of it the same reason why you can't escape a black hole once you're across the event horizon?
Well, yeah, that's what. Yeah, once we're that's a, yeah, because the escape speed inside the event horizon is faster than the speed of light, right? And so since you can't get faster than the speed of light, you can't escape. So as
If a
long as
warp
you're
drive goes faster than the speed of light, would that be fast enough to escape the event horizon
if you could go faster than the speed of light, then
with a
you could
warp
do that.
drive?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, right? If you're inside if you're inside the event horizon and you can warp out of that, then assuming you're surviving the radiation and all the other issues, right? There's the space time physics of being able to get outside the event horizon, but then there's also the the astrophysical reality that once you're that close to a black hole, you're going to be bathed in such intense radiation that you're dead by then anyway.
Yeah, that you're dead by the time you cross the event horizon, probably.
Yeah, you're going to be stretched into a thin string of spaghetti and irradiated to the point where I don't think any organic molecules in your body would survive. So I think it's kind of
Anyway, also do you have one other? Sorry, I don't mean to hold you up or anything.
one more question.
Do you do you um do you Do you know? Are you going to be on any other shows besides season 11 of the How the Universe Works? I forget.
Well, if they do a season 11, I'll be on it. We're still waiting to know whether we do that or not. And at the moment, I'm just now talking with another documentary production about something at Meteor Crater next month. So we'll see if that comes to pass.
You study asteroid impacts mainly, right?
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
Also, I could always. Oh, I think this is the end. Can I still talk to you through email?
Oh, sure. Yeah, pop emails as you wish.
But you have to go now.
Yeah, now I got to wrap up for another meeting, but it's good talking with you.
Oh, hold on. Let me wrap up do the outro to my podcast. All right, All right. Thank you for watching, guys. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. As always, bye bye. Let me just stop.